Alright, anyways, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the patch 9.11 patch note rundown. As usual, you're here because you want to know what makes this patch tick, and I am the clock master, as they say.
No one says that.
Anyways, I don't really have much to say about this patch. I think this last week and a half or so, I've been playing a little bit more auto chess than usual, so my kind of feel on the meta is a little bit worse than it is normally. I'm gonna focus mainly on mid lane champions. I think ever since MSI, it's pretty obvious that the problematic mid lane champions or really powerful champions are champions like Sylas, Akali, Ryze. I think any of those three champions getting nerfed would be pretty happy for me in general. The biggest problems about those three champions in particular is that Akali and Ryze are actually really hard champions to play. So they have notoriously low win rates, but when used at a high skill level, they're incredibly powerful. So they're a common balance problem. I mean, come on, this is like the 27th time Ryze has been a balance nightmare, right? Because it turns out when you need or have a shotgunning mage with infinite CDR as well as like really strong defensive tools, he becomes a problem day in and day out, year after year, even regardless of like third or fourth rework, you know? Anyways, those are the three things I kind of want to see. So let's continue on with this patch note. Hey y'all, how are you doing? Having a good week? Good. In this patch, outside of some smaller balance changes on assortment of champions, with bigger updates for Janna and Yuumi, a soft revert to Zac, follow up the Master Yi. Okay. Little Demon Tristana is ready to take on Mischief. Okay. Challenges with experience. Oh. Okay. Golden recall for challenger animations. Okay. Let's keep going. So we never do these because I'm essentially doing that right now. Little Demon Tristana. Akali, passive energy refund decrease late, damage ratio decrease. Lowering Akali's ability to deal consistent and sustained damage, a strength that's a huge part of our power discrepancy between highest levels of play and everywhere else. Okay, so they're lowering her energy refund on her passive, especially mid to late game. Got it? And they're lowering the damage ratio by quite a bit. 0.3 AD, 0.2 AP. She's mainly an AP champion, which is actually the energy refund is actually a really big deal. I didn't know she actually got this much energy from passive proc. I guess that would make sense. How she was able to consistently shotgun out abilities, even when I feel like she shouldn't be able to. So, like I said before, I particularly as a mid lane player, I'm looking for these three champions to be nerfed. So, seeing this, I actually think is a good thing. Akali, the thing about Akali is she's really hard to play in team fights in general. So, being able, like, having to micromanage your energy, I feel like is a good thing. I don't necessarily know if this makes her team. This is obviously going to make her team fighting mid late game even worse. Something that she already kind of struggles in. So I would have been maybe happier doing like just like across the board damage nerf or something along the lines of a stat nerf, because I don't necessarily know if I want to make her team fighting even more difficult than it already is. But that's what they decided to do with it. Again, I was just looking for nerfs to those three champions. So seeing this, I'm happy. Even though maybe not necessarily the way I would go and look about it. Amumu, passive true damage decreased. Why? This feels like a... Okay, no one plays this champion high elo, okay? This is probably like a low elo champion complaint because this champion's always been really dominant low elo. Why? But like, why even bother nerfing it, you know? Low elo also has a lot of problematic champions, but like, I think Riot should just encourage people, unless like the win rate is way too high. Like, we're talking like 60%, like really strong outliers. That like, just keep this in. Who cares if a champion's a 55% win rate or a 54% win rate in low elo? Like, you want to encourage people to work toward when they get better, that their understanding of the game makes the game feel better as well. You don't want people to get better and then make them realize that like, wait, we nerfed a champion that was already bad just because you were bad as well. Like, I feel like that realization is worse for players than anything else. Anyways, well, we'll keep going. Ekko, basic attacking after E no longer delayed due to the animation. That sounds really nice. I don't play much Ekko, so I can't really comment too much on this, but that's a nice quality of life buff that seems very nice for the champion. A lot of people ask me about Ekko. I think he's relatively weak. He generally is only played when he only pops up when you're the better player. Like, that's how I feel like Ekko is as a kit, but he snowballs really hard. generally speaking, the only person I know is Shifter, who plays Ekko much anymore, aside from some Ekko one tricks. So you probably have to talk to him about the relative strength of the champion. At the moment, I think relatively weak, unless you're just a better player. Galio. W base damage decrease, damage ratio increase, E damage decrease. We're shifting some of Galio's baseline damage as he leans onto support into W's ratio as a stronger reward for his AP building, damage, and mid lane capability. Okay. So I do feel like it's weird that Galio is a non-existent mid-top laner when he used to be super dominant in solo lanes and is now only a support. And he's a top-tier support at that. So them taking away base damage values of a support seems... Oh my god, wait, what? That's a huge nerf. They nerfed 30 damage at level 1? 2, 3, 4, and 5. So the 30 damage across the board. Usually when you're playing a lane, supports in lane, you're only laning to like about level 7. So quite a big nerf and quite a big AP ratio buff. It goes from 0.1 to 0.3. Interesting. Obviously they're trying to shift power to solo lane Galio. And they lowered the damage by this. This isn't gonna do shit. Solo lane Galio is not gonna come back because of this. Let me say that right now. Like, if you want to buff solo lane Galio, make him better in lane. If he's better in lane, he'll naturally be seen more play. If anything, this is just, they nerfed his base damage value on his E, so he doesn't even feel that much better in lane. And he's certainly not going to be laning now. He does even less damage with his W and his E. Because some of what made Galio really bad was just like he couldn't poke people and he can't really scrap people. So like, I see this like kind of shift toward AP power as like, yeah, maybe in a perfect world where like you're playing against a perfect counter matchup like Fizz or something, and like you get jungle ganks and you snowball really hard, you're really happy to have a 0.9 ratio on W. But in every other situation, like 98% of the time, this champ's just worse, just straight worse. So I'm not happy about these changes. I think it's very rare you hear me that I state this is a bad change, you know? Like, I understand why they would do this. This is, I think, a bad change. This doesn't make him better mid lane. This just makes him a worse champion. Let's keep going. I'm really surprised. I haven't had to say something like that in like 10 patches. Gragas, base health growth, attack damage increase. Attack damage increase. Okay. Increasing Gragas' early durability, helping him out during his early clear speed. Okay. So health AD. Wait, one thing to know, health is really valuable on Gragas. Gragas' defensive steroid is his W, which is flat. It's percentage damage reduction, as well as gives him his passive gives him health restore based on his max health. So having extra health growth on the champion matters more than you would expect. I actually really like these buffs. I don't think Gragas is that bad, but generally speaking, as an AP jungler, I don't see him much anymore. I find even I see more Amumus than I see Gragas. I don't think he's a bad champion. He just seems to be other AP champions seem to be taking more than him. If you're a tank, you're taking Sedge way more than you're taking Gragas. And if you want like an AP damage source, you're taking like Eve way more than you're taking Gragas or Karthus. And so Gragas kind of doesn't really fulfill. I don't feel like he's tanky enough to fulfill his role. I like these changes. I think this is nice. You'd be surprised. Like, these seem really silly, but contrasting these two changes, I feel like they did a good job like figuring out what Gragas is weak at and buffed him to make him a champion that's already okay, like decent, like a little bit more power to make him played more, and they missed the complete mark on the Galio. Alright, Janna. Okay, so right now she feels like a poke mage early in the game, yes. It's appealing and shielding support. Okay. We're taking this opportunity to encourage more kinds of interaction between her and everyone else. Okay, so she shouldn't be able to W max. They say this, but then they lowered the cooldown of W when you put points into it. Okay, I already don't understand. But okay, they lowered the base damage for maxing W by 40, but okay. Oh, wow. Wait, that's so cool. Wait, this is such a nice skill expression for Janna. Janna's W wasn't a problem. I disagree. I think poking for Janna was a problem. With the area and scorch damage kind of overlapping, you would get like 100 damage of W. a W auto. She was more of a poke champion than she was a disengaged champion. I agree with that completely. Like I think they hit the mark on what made Janna a problem. This is a really interesting one. Like, does this mean that when she hits blast plants? Oh, I guess it's ability. Okay, so it's only her W also decreases this, so she would want to E first always, and then use her abilities to lower the cooldown by quite a bit. And they just gave her flat buffs on her shield early, and they took 2 seconds off at the very end. 2 seconds means that as long as you hit one ability, the cooldown will be lower than it before. And if you hit all of your abilities, the cooldown's like halved. That's insane. That's so nice. And they increased the Wait, this seems like such a significant buff for a champion. Wait, this doesn't seem like... Look, I can understand. I think the numbers are just wrong. 20% seems like a lot of reward for you to get for... You're guaranteed the W slow, right? So if you E and then press W, I feel like... Okay, I know people think little of Janna players, but like... The average Janna player should have brain cells enough to do that rotation. Like that's not like complicated rotation, right? You E first and then you press your buttons. So even if you're just hitting the W, let's say they dodge or you miss your Q and they dodge or you miss your ulti, you're getting more value from that by hitting one ability. So the assumption is that in a general fight or skirmish, the Janna player hits 1/3 of her abilities, which I think is insane. Like that, I would assume that the Janna player should hit 2/3 and should get rewarded for hitting everything. I guess Q doesn't count you know what? I actually messed up here. Q does not count as a knockback. It counts as a knock up. So it's only ulti and W. Huh. So at best you can only get 40%. Oh, Q does reduce the cooldown? It slows. Okay. Then never mind. This is built with the idea that a Janna player on average hits 1/3 of her abilities, and they want to reward people who are better than average Janna players, which I think is absurd. It just means that high elo this got a huge, enormous buff. Like, if they're gonna go for this, what's the point of whatchamacallit, lowering the cooldown on this? Because lowering the cooldown on this automatically lowers the cooldown of E as well. Like, if they're going for trying for more skill expression rather than buffing the champion, they should have just kept the cooldown the same on Zephyr, and then use skill expression through enabling this new passive on E, so that she would be able to throw out more E's in a fight. But it just seems like a straight buff. Like, because remember we talked about, if you're a Janna player, like laning is only till level 5, like level 5 or 7. So you're getting like maybe 30 points off your E if you're maxing W again, and you're getting more cooldown. But you're losing... You're gaining CDR and you're gaining early cooldown in lane. Early or equivalent. Regardless what you end up doing. And the shield value is higher too. I just think this is just like a kind of a change that is just like a buff for Janna. And I understand. I think Janna's a little bit weak right now. Don't get me wrong. It's not that I think Janna shouldn't be buffed. I think she's a little bit weak right now. It does deserve some buffs. I just feel like I got baited by this statement. That like encourage more kinds of interaction between her and everyone else so she gets the most out of her abilities. Sure, that is true through E. But we're just straight buffing the champion. Because apparently the understanding of Janna is the fact that she should hit 1/3 of her abilities in a rotation. And I think that's pretty silly, in my opinion. So I just think Janna got straight buffed. She's going to be really dominant mid to late game, more than she was before. I'm kind of interested to see how strong this is. And I would need to see her in game and or talk to support players to see how good she is. First impression, she got buffed quite a bit. As a relatively weaker support, that buffing weak supports shouldn't be a problem. The way they did it, I'd prefer if I didn't even read this statement. Then I could be like, wow, this is an interesting change. Let's see how it works out. I don't think it really falls in line with what I expected reading their justification for it. But it's interesting. we'll see if it makes it broken. Jayce. Q base damage decreased late. Damage ratio decreased. Jayce is too reliable pick and pro play. Correct. Given a strong early game, correct. We're nerfing a scale to give opponents more of a chance to get out of lane phase. So, they acknowledge that he's too reliable pick and pro play. And they acknowledge he has a very strong early game, which is probably why he's reliable in pro play, because early game transition to mid game is really easy when you have winning lanes. And so their changes to nerf is mid game, late game scaling. I don't necessarily think that that's a terrible idea. I just think like Jayce is always going to be a problem because he's such a dominant lane champion. The problem with Jayce is you can't remove his lane dominance because then he doesn't exist as a champion. So he has to be oppressive against picks. That's kind of the state that Jayce is in. It's just super awkward to talk about Jayce because he's never not gonna. He's always going to be a lane oppressive pick, and he's really hard to balance. It's impossible to balance a lane oppressive pick. It's like balancing Renekton. Remember when the top lane had the Renekton bar? Either you're stronger than Renekton and you can play top lane, or you're worse and you can never play top lane. That's kind of how Jayce is if you're against a good Jayce player. At the very least with Jayce, I will admit, when Renekton gets stronger, he gets healthier and tankier. And so it's hard to get a pick on it like it's such a tanky champion. Whereas Jayce is still squishy, it doesn't bring more. He's not a frontline, so he's easier to pick off and easier to kind of snowball against. So I think Jayce does have more weaknesses than having a Jayce bar has more weaknesses than, like, let's say a Renekton bar. I do think Jayce needs nerfs. Like that's the strange thing. I think that he does need nerfs. I wouldn't mind just a flat nerf in lane on every spectrum. So nerfing his lane phase a little bit to make sure he's not super oppressive, but still giving him like the same feeling that he can't be strong if he gets out of lane. So like for instance, if we were looking for a Q nerf, I would have just like nerfed. I would have been more comfortable nerfing the flat damage throughout. Than nerfing it early, than nerfing it late. Like I would have done like 60 to like 300, you know? If they wanted to go for that and maybe keep the bonus AD ratio or nerf it by 0.1. I think that like the way they targeted the Jayce nerf was so much out of lane, but like that's not. This is just gonna make it harder for Jayce players to play the game. Like you have to be a godly Jayce player to transition, or a better Jayce player to transition your lead, as opposed to just making the champion feel like it has a more normal curve throughout. Anyways, let's keep going. Karthus. So, I think Karthus has a problem. And the problem is not his ulti. Its problem is inherently not his ulti. So, I used to play Karthus a lot back in seasons 1 and 2. I played against a lot of Karthus players through my life, all across the spectrum. I've seen a bunch of Karthus players all over. And the thing about Karthus ulti that makes it balanced, up until a certain point, was that Karthus ulti had a long cooldown, like an extremely long cooldown. If you're doing global stuff and you have it needs to have a long cooldown to be balanced. The problem with Karthus ulti is not necessarily its damage or its ratio. The problem with Karthus ulti is the amount of times you can use it in the game. Because everyone who plays Karthus right now goes Dark Harvest and picks up the stupid ulti hunter and picks up Presence of Mind, it makes it so that you get such a low cooldown on Karthus ulti that shouldn't happen. So like the Karthus nerfs right now are just because the runes work really well for this particular champion. Very few champions can run the same runes and still feel effective. Pyke is another champion that actually runs the same stuff. But aside from those two, you think about all the champions in the game, it's not really that common. But Karthus is the biggest abuser of the rune. The champion itself did not change. The keystones enabled the champion to be stronger. And since I guess we're living in this keystone world, he gets these nerfs. But I want to make it very clear that these nerfs happen because he is one of the sole champions that can abuse this rune combination over all others. Not because of the champion strength having changed because of that. Yeah. So maybe he does deserve these nerfs, okay, onto his ulti. But I do want to say pretty much the only reason why it's happening is because of the rune combination. I do think Karthus is too strong and needs nerfs. So let me make sure I cover my bases there and say I agree with nerfs to Karthus. But I will say you have to understand why he's getting this nerf and why Karthus is so strong right now. Let's keep going. Master Yi. Bonus attacks to be a level 1 removed. What? We went in 9-10. We went to nerf Master Yi and average play, increased satisfaction for all players by creating opportunities for more skillful play. Changes were pretty neutral at the time, and they'd be more impactful due to changes to Rage Blade Conqueror as a follow-up. We're cutting back his early attack speed, some of his isolated damage, so he loses some of his early clear speed, but more reliable window of untargetability. Is this really what they're gonna say about this right here? The changes were neutral? Because I remember reading a Reddit post immediately the week of or the week after saying that their Master Yi changes were completely awful, and that rather than creating more skill expression, they decreased skill expression by not having to have E timing, which created worse win rates in high elo and way higher win rates in low elo. And so their like change in 9-10 was actually bad and went against what they originally said. So I don't think necessarily any of this helps with that regard. They're just nerfing the champion. So he's going to be worse in high elo and worse in low elo, rather than looking for, you know, creating opportunities for more skillful play, you know? I think they just shit the bed when they came to this. I'll be honest. When they came to the 9-10 Master Yi nerfs, completely fucked up. It's sad that, like, you know, there's some Master Yi players that have to work with this because their champion's not that good, but they're nerfing for low elo and it affects high elo as well. Rework them again, I would say. You guys messed up. Rammus. Passive attack damage flattened, R damage decreased. What? Rammus's damage in teamfights is too much. What? But to ensure that we're not making him fall into a limp ball, we're pulling power specifically out of his ulti and passive so he can hurt enemies via taunting and spell reflect with high armor builds. Okay. So he gets 10 at all levels with passive, and he gets less damage on his ulti. What? The fuck? I have never in my life said Rammus's damage in team fights is too high. Ever. I've always been, this guy is too tanky. The reflect is too powerful. He can shove towers really quickly with his ulti. His gank setup is really strong. His gank potential is really strong. But I've never in my life been like, we need to avoid Rammus in team fights because he is too oppressive damage-wise as a champion. I've never, ever said that. Like, mainly, Tremors is used a lot for, like, its utility, to slow people down and keep them next to you so your team can work with them. Or work with you to kill them, as opposed to the actual damage it brings. The damage is nice, but, like, this feels like another one of those low elo nerfs, honestly. Like, I don't see much Rammus right now, and the fact that he's getting nerfed again is like actually absurd to me. I don't know if I can really be happy when I see Rammus, Master Yi, whatchamacallit, Amumu, stuff that feels like it's a nerf, because rather than hoping, like the way that I see League is that over time the player base, the average player will get better at playing the game over time, and then there'll be an influx of new players that will play the game and be like not that good, or there'll be players who play really casually and their skill level stays relatively the same. So the way that I see it is players are staying the same skill level or increasing, and as players increase, you should want to encourage them, like as they play better, to that they enter into a more balanced game state. Like they start to recognize like what makes a champion strong and weak, and the game it's better balanced as they get better as well. This I feel like this is like not even targeting like the middle pack, where it's like let's say like the gold players or the silver players. This feels like it's targeting like even below that. I don't necessarily know. Maybe I'm just talking out my ass. I haven't seen the statistics, and obviously Riot went in nerf for no reason. I feel like they nerf a lot around like win rates in certain divisions, but as a high-level player that likes to see the game get balanced around the idea that players get better over time, this seems, and a lot of the nerfs seem really, really bad this patch. Anyways, let's keep going. Warwick, Q healing increased late. Letting Warwick live the drain taking dream a little bit more. Okay, wow, they buffed it by 20% late game. That's so much. I like this a lot. I love this actually, because it's not even late game. Oh, there is a build with Death Stance and Warrior. That actually you get this at 9. I think Warwick is not very good, but he's a good beginner champion to learn the jungle, and I like it. I like that they're putting small buffs into him, especially to encourage the drain taking dream. Seems like what Warwick is about. Cool, I like it. Yuumi, okay, this champion. They hotfixed and buffed every single one of her abilities, and I'm pretty sure she went from a below average champion to a good champion, like a straight good, if not great champion. So what are they doing? We're making some quality of life changes and bug fixes for Yuumi. Okay, lower the gap between good and bad Yuumi players while increasing good players' power. Range indicator is now brighter with the first cast. Okay, now gives assists on champion takedown for your team which is attached to a participating ally. This seems like a really... It's like Jarvan flag levels of brainless when it comes to getting assists. Okay, Zoomies. Flatten movement speed decay to herself and her ally she's attached to based on ability power. Okay. Oh, this is actually hilarious. So when I was playing with Painless, if Poppy ult hits Yuumi, she won't go toward her fountain. She'll sometimes go toward the enemy's fountain. So my support friend Painless got hit with Poppy R and put her toward the enemy fountain and she died there. So it was actually hilarious, and I thought I'm glad they're fixing that. That's a really funny one though. I was really worried because I heard that Yuumi was getting actually hard buffed. I think this is probably the biggest buff for her. And maybe the flattened move speed decay. I don't know exactly. Like I don't know what this means because I don't know exactly how move speed decays and what flattening means because there's no numbers attached to it, and I have to just kind of visualize in my head what the words mean. But this is probably the biggest thing, and this will make the easiest way to describe this is on average Yuumi will get more gold, and if she has Dark Steel on average, she's gonna get stacks easier. Cool, that's it. I think she's already a powerful champion. They should be very, very careful about the strength of this champion. More than likely in the future, Yumi's going to actually have to be nerfed. Let's keep going. Zach. Q slow decrease, cooldown decrease late. W max range, what? Let me read what they're doing. Following some excellent discussions regarding where Zach landed after his rework, after discussing player feedback, we've ultimately decided we went too far pulling damage out of him in a quest for more CC laden tank. We agree that part of Zach's pattern of diving in the backline and doing damage is core to who he is. Unfortunately, Zach players felt like after diving in, he wasn't able to accomplish anything more than knocking people around. We're reverting his rework ulti and W. Okay, so this statement right here. We went too far pulling damage out of him in our quest for more CC laden tank. Damage is the only thing that matters. If you're a tank, like the reason why Sejuani is strong as a champion is not just her CC, it's that her damage is absurd. She is a better assassin when fed than most assassin players in the game, or a lot of assassin players in the game. A good tank does good damage. Sion is a good example of this. Any strong tank ever has been good because of the damage they deal, which is actually stupid, but that's just the world we live in. It's very, because if you don't do damage, you can't pressure in lane to do stuff. Like, damage allows you to trade better and allows you to actually get pressure in the lane so you can rotate and do stuff. If you don't do damage, you're just a damage sponge, you could never out tank damage in this game. It's literally not possible. You may do small amounts of damage because you're so far, or take small amounts of damage because you're so far ahead, but damage has always been king in this game. Always. So they should know quite simply that taking damage out of a tank or taking damage out of anyone is like, you know, the reason why Maokai isn't that good right now is because he doesn't have damage. That's straight up. If he did more damage, he'd be better. Obviously, if he got any buffs, he'd be better. But like, the reason why he's not a top tier tank is because they ended up nerfing his damage like 3 or 4 times. And the reason why Sion fell off is because they nerfed his damage 3 or 4 times. Let's keep going. Stretching strikes. The slow that decreased by, okay, and the cooldown that decreased by 2 seconds, max rank, but still 13 late. Wow, they decreased the slow by this much. This seems like a ton. Let's see what matter. Now does 2% of targets max? Oh, this is why. Okay, it does max health per AP power. Okay. No longer switches himself while charging, becomes unstoppable. No longer knocks back enemies when releasing. Now casts 4 seconds. Each bounce does. Oh, it's the old one. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, 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 boom. Let's bounce. I like this. I like this one a lot. So he ends up ramping up movement speed. That's why they had to nerf stretching strikes, right? So it's old Zakar. I like the old Zakar. It reminds me of like the movie Flubber. And he casts W while he's ulting, so he just does like a lot of damage next to people, and he's unstoppable when he moves around the ulti, right? Sure. This is okay. You should think of this more as like a quality of life buff for for champions who play, or people who play this champion. I think generally speaking, if you want to play Zac, you would like to have him as like a bounty blob, than like as a delivery mechanism, I guess is the best way to describe it. The biggest thing I can see is the slow percentage going, but I do think that like you're probably gonna go Q to E to Q max now with the insane amount of CDR reduction you're getting from Q. So it'll probably compensate itself by the fact that his ulti does like quite a lot of damage now, and it's more disruptive. I think this is nice. I think it's a good change for Zac. Better fits his old theme, like his current theme, or his theme in general. Challenger recall. Let the golden light shine above you in unranked queues. All unranked queues, challenger players will now see a special animation in game. In ranked queues, challenger will only see the special animation if they're a challenger in. Challenger recall appears anytime the blue normal recall play, but does not override bearing buff recalls or the blue effect of the main map to preserve gameplay readability. If a player demotes out a challenger, the recall will go away. Only reappear if the player gets back in the rank. Nice. I like this. I know this is Meteos' initial recommendation. Only took 2 years to get this into the game, and I gotta say, right, that's very timely of you. Good stuff. I think encouraging people to try to be one of the best players in the region is a good thing. And I think that having stuff like this, like cosmetic, like I'll be honest, like people just love cosmetic shit. You know, cosmetic rewards are like unique cosmetic rewards that don't feel like other people don't feel too left out about, are like the way to get people to care more about the ladder, in my opinion. Okay, Rainbow Fluff. I forgot about this, and its animation will be gone soon. Got it. Oh, this is the big bug fix actually. Draven's ulti, I read about this. It doesn't decrease in damage on the way backwards, and they didn't realize that in the game until just recently. Oh, the Titanic Hydra is no longer able to hit towers, so you can't auto reset with Titanic to do more damage split pushing. Hallucinate, the clone did less auto attack damage. How long was this bug in the game? Getting damage by area that's no longer cause the area to continue to deal damage to the player. Oh my god, this was a huge one too.
Iceborne Thrall no longer takes Eye of the Herald when the team steals. Wait, that's actually hilarious. Okay. Wait. These are all huge changes right here. I usually just glance over bug fixes, but these are all really, really important. This is straight a damage nerf to Draven. This is a this isn't that important. Usually when you finish Titanic, you're like, it's like a small minor thing. This is important because this is actually getting abused here and there, and this is just like a straight buff to the champion. Okay, this is a new Triss skin. I've never been so. Okay, let me preface this completely by saying I had seen what LS and a couple other people have said about this patch as being negative. I tried to go into this patch with a pretty open like mindset of what I wanted to see, and I wanted to be like I know what I wanted to see and what I didn't see. So I didn't see Ryze and Sylas nerfs. At the very beginning, I said I want to see these 3 mid laners nerfed. Didn't see that. I do think they did do some good things. I think the Akali stuff is good. I think the Gragas stuff is good. I think the Warwick stuff is good, and the Zac stuff. But I think this is one of the few patches where I feel like there are a couple changes that are strange to me. I feel like the justification doesn't really match the nerfs or the changes. I'm not very happy about seeing the Amumu Galio stuff especially is probably the worst change. They straight buff Janna, but they try to pass it off as like skill expression when they could have just said this champ's weak, we're trying something new. I would have preferred that kind of messaging instead. If they're gonna put messaging on why they do buffs and nerfs, I feel like it's reasonable for me to critique their messaging in their execution of their messaging. And I feel like a lot of that was wrong on this patch rundown. A lot of it. And the Rammus nerfs are kind of just what the hell. So this is one of those patches where I felt like they could have done a lot more, and they did a little bit, and a lot of things I don't agree with their reasonings, or their reasonings don't feel like good enough for why they did things, or even if they might have hit the correct change. So definitely one of the worst patches I've read. I haven't said that probably since the start of the year.